struggled with my story because, well, first of all, I'll just say, I'll reference Moonlight. You know, Moonlight was an Oscar-winning Best Picture film about a black man struggling with his sexuality and his identity in the confines of being a black man in America, being in poverty, and being in a household that was very abusive. And in a lot of ways, the film is hailed more of a coming-of-age story than a coming-out story. And that is very similar to my experience. My story tonight is more of a coming-of-age story than a coming-of-out story because, like the lead character in Moonlight, I grew up in poverty. I was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico. There were no other people that looked like me as a black queer femme. My mother was a teenage drug addict. I didn't have a stable home. And it didn't really matter if I was gay or the valedictorian or anything. Like, my mere existence to my mother was an annoyance to her. So getting food on the table, getting to school, making sure that I wasn't beaten, making sure that I didn't say the wrong thing that would trigger her to remind me once again that she should have had an abortion, moving from home to home every single time we were evicted, having some of her drug addict boyfriends sent into my room at night to fondle me. That was my existence. So I didn't really have time to go through this kind of like 90210 or Molly Ringwald like identity of like, am I a jock, am I this, am I that? My daily existence was just an existence of survival. And so for me, my first kind of identity, which is strange because as Americans, we are fiercely independent. And usually part of the coming of age story is finding something that you really don't identify with your family, and you take on all of these traits and you fight with them and you're like, this is who I am and I hate your music and you don't understand my rock and roll and all of these things. And for me, my experience was different because my identity, I had to make sure was a blank canvas. I learned very young to fear people and to also be very quiet and size everybody up to make sure that I could paint whatever you thought, or I thought that you wanted me to be, to minimize getting punched, getting beaten, getting raped, getting kicked out of my house. So at approximately, like, my coming of age story started with like an identity of being a mother. First of all, I had to learn how to mother myself, how to get myself to school, how to get myself dressed. I had a brother who was 10 years younger than me, who relied on me to do the same for him. And so I started realizing in those moments that I'm empathic, I'm a caretaker. I also had a high school teacher who saw that even despite all the things that he knew was going on in my home, I had the best grades of anybody in the class, and he was like, you should go to college. And he helped me get to college. I filled out my applications on my own. I went and I applied for a dorm. I did apply for the all-girls dorm. Maybe not so coincidental. And I got myself into school and I got myself far away from my family. And in that moment, I also started to take on this other identity of being this strong, black, femme, resilient person who is self-reliant and I'm doing stuff to take care of myself. Like, self-love was such an important journey for me and such an important part of my coming of age story. So, just so happened in the all-girls dorm that I met this really cute girl, and I fell in love with her, you know, with more lust. But at that time, I was just like, I'm a lesbian. And I didn't have anybody to tell it to because I wasn't gonna tell, my cousin was in jail, and then soon after overdosed on heroin. My mom had taken off to Oakland and was prostituting herself for crack, and at that time, we didn't have cell phones, I didn't know where she was. I had nobody who cared that I was gay. And in a lot of ways, my partner at the time, she came from a very Irish Catholic Long Island home where all the men were cops and all the women were nurses. And even though they said things to her that, you know, we kind of processed together that were very hurtful, that, you know, they weren't 100% accepting of her, some of the things that they told her were like, we're worried about your safety. What is it going to be like for you to bring children into the world? What are your plans for that? How are you and this woman going to navigate? I was, you know, part of their reaction was based in hate and bigotry and just kind of ignorance, but I was even still envious that somebody gave a shit about her and not me. So, you know, we broke up, and then part of my identity and part of my coming, you know, my story of coming out and coming along, and my identity was that I got a full ride to NYU to go to grad school. And that really stuck as part of my identity. It was that, like, I was strong and I was resilient. And then I got to NYU and I saw this beautiful world in New York City where queer wasn't a monolith, black wasn't a monolith, women weren't a monolith. Like, I could actually find myself and create communities of common value and really see myself thriving. In 2009 is when I started to curate dapperQ, which is a digital online magazine which celebrates queer style. And in doing that, I felt like I was creating a space for all the other people who had been told that they were ugly and worthless, and people not only just in you know, our silos in New York and San Francisco and LA, but people who were living in the middle of nowhere, who just wanted to reach out to somebody and say, can I be, you know, featured on your website? Can you connect me with somebody? This is the first time I'm seeing somebody wearing a prom suit. I want to wear a prom suit, but my mom's telling me I have to wear a dress. Can you help me have that conversation with them? And in doing that, and then in starting to do the fashion shows at places like Brooklyn Museum and the California Academy of Sciences, and speaking at South by Southwest, I started realizing the power of who I am, and that nobody was ever going to be able to rob that from me. And so I'll end with, on Monday night I went to go see a panel where Wade Davis, a gay former NFL player, was talking. And he now coaches and consults for professional teams to make their teams more, like a better place for other players to come out and be accepted. And what he said was that he was gay, but he was also a football player, like a damn good football player. And he was saying that there's nothing that he has to come out of the closet to. Like, there's this narrative that there's something terribly wrong with us, that we're like monsters or creatures of the sea, and that we have to like wait for the right time to come out and make sure everybody around us is okay and accepting. And what he told me that really stuck with me for tonight is that he doesn't come out, is that he invites in. And so I am an amazing, beautiful, strong, black, femme, resilient, and I happen to also be queer. And for me to call you in and invite you into that world, you have to be blessed.